all in all by itself, is good for you.
Good for you.
Good for you, Lois.
Good for you, Dr. Borgenson.
Good for you, Mrs. K.
Well, good for you. As your king. Good for you.
Eat this. It'll be good for you.
Oh, good for you, Queen Improv. This is not your kingdom.
It's probably good for you. A hard surface aligns the vertebrae.
And she'll be good for you.
Plus, it's not good for you, man. It's not healthy.
Hey, good for you.
Good for you.
That's good for you.
Oh, it's really good for you. Crazy nutrients.
Good for you, Jordan.
Good for you. You must be so much fatter.
Good for you.
Good for you, Herb!
The question is, how can I do good for you today?
Homer, sitting that close to the TV can't be good for you.
Talking while the TV's on can't be good for you.
Yes. Yes, we did.
Good for you.
We wouldn't want everything to be good for you.
Good for you, man.
Really good. Look, I know this is a lot, but it's good for you.
Be good for your grandparents, boy.
It's not good for your heart.
Good for you.
Good for you.
But it's good for you to get to know them.
Of course.
You can sleep on the floor. It's good for your back.
Wonderful. Good for you.
A few pegs, which would be good for you.
Pick football. Good for you.
Well, I'm afraid I'm no good for you. The first rule of war is know thine enemy.
Good for you, little girl.
Guys, church is good for your souls.
Well, good for you. What'd you say?
Good for you.
So, I read about that.
Now look, Grace. You know what's good for you?
Good for you, Shaka.
Good for you.
Good for you.
It's good for you, me and Mr. McGee.
Good for you. Good for you.
You see,
It'd be good for you and Gloria, too.
why?
Good for you, pal.
Good for you, son. Good for you. Maybe this'll straighten a boy out.
Good for you, Brad.
Oh,
Wow, good for you.
Is 315 good for you?
I did what was good for you.
Your biggest fan.
Hey, good for you, because I want to...
Mom, churros are good for you.
Yeah, for ordinary working people.
Oh, yeah, good for you.
I'm afraid it doesn't look good for you, Senor Griffin.
Thinks a little dirt under your fingernails would be good for you.
Good for you. Good for you.
Good for you. I wasn't.
Oh, dude.
Good for you.
What's good for you?
Good for you.
Good for you.
Good for you.
Good for you.
well, good for me. And good for you.
Yeah, that sounds like a
Well, good for you. Oh, come on. I think it'll be good for you.
Good for you.
Well, good for you.
Or whatever's good for you. I don't care.
For you, Mom. Why?
Are good for you.
Good for you, Mo.
Oh, that's not good for you.
Sure, life is good for you. But what about Marge?
Oh, you'll make it easy. It's still early. Good for you.
Good for you, not being bad.
Good for you. Well, good for you.
Good for you, lass.
Well, good for you.
Good for you. No more drinking?
Good for you.
He's probably bottling up his emotions. That's not good for you.
So, was it good for you?
Now let me start by saying, good for you, son.
Good for you.
Oh, well, good for you.
Hey, good for you, what?
Good for you.
Look who's all grown up and become the dark one. Good for you.
Well, that curled my lashes, but good for you.
Good for you.
Good for you. How was it?
Good for you, son.
Well, good for you.
I've got a partner.
Well, good for you.
Good for you. Good for you.
And you got it? Good for you.
Oh, it's good tasting and good for you.
Well, good for you. Who?
People like lemons. They're good for your voice.
Well, still, good for you.
Doesn't look good for you.
Oh, good for you.
If it's so good for you.
Well, good for you.
Good for you, homie. I'm proud of you.
Good for you. You bested me.
It can't be good for
For you. That's
Good for you, homie.
Good for you, soldier.
Good for you, Shaka.
All in all, thanks, fellas. I hear this stuff is good for you.